Thanks, Megan. So thanks for having me back. I actually spoke to this group, my husband and I did, I think about 4 years ago or so. So it's good to be back. You guys weren't here that day. They looked at each other like, what? So as Megan said, I'm going to talk to you guys kind of about a little bit about my background and then about our farm and creamery. I've got lots of pictures, got some videos, so hopefully it can do a lot of the talking for me. And then I've just got some tidbits about things to keep in mind as students, because I know you guys are all super excited about your futures and maybe a little unsure. So hopefully I can help kind of put those issues at ease and answer any questions for you guys. Just to get started, a little bit about kind of the background and my role in the industry. Between myself, my husband, and my parents, we're all very actively involved in various aspects of the industry. So we've all served in various capacities in within these different groups in both leadership and then as board member positions. Obviously, I'm not a one-man show. I can't do all of this by myself, and this is really truly a family-owned and operated business venture. So my husband and myself and our daughter are up there on the right. My parents are in the center, who are really kind of the spearheaded all of this beginning. And then my younger sister, who is also a graduate of Chipola Junior College, I mess with her. She's got a portrait, I think, over there in the Language Arts building, so you guys probably walk past her every day, so you can like throw spitballs at her. But she's a Chipola Junior College graduate, and then her husband. So we're all owners in the creamery, and then my parents and my husband and myself in the farm. So this is kind of just a little introduction video. I figured this kind of sums up the farm and kind of our business, and then we can talk about it in a little more detail. So I'm going to hopefully this works. I can get some, maybe. Do you guys know how to get the volume going? I should have checked this. IT help. Do you guys know? Here we are, a bunch of scientists, and we have no idea what we're doing. If not.
It's not going to work.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to talk about it while we go through. I didn't plan on that one. So this video was put together by Florida Dairy Farmers, which is an organization out of Orlando. It's kind of our face forward towards the consumers. And so I'm actually a board member, and they did just kind of a quick video about a farm. So this is the farm itself. That's my parents. They are first generation dairy farm owners and operators. What's that? You're kidding me. Jeez, guys. Never mind. We're just going to skip the video. Oh. It's playing down here. I'm sorry.
You have to drag it over to the other screen.
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, I can skip it if it's...
Okay. Oh.
It'll make my presentation shorter, so... Dude. I'm not used to multi-screens. Thank you. You're going to have to do that for me again in a second, because there's another short one. All right, so we'll start over. Anyway, so Florida Dairy Farmers put this video together, so you guys get to see some video of the farm. I'm basically just kind of introducing us to the general public and talking about kind of how we got started. My parents are first-generation farmers, like I mentioned. And then my sister, which will appear in just a moment, she is really kind of the one that spearheaded our original recipe for us and started the creamery for us. So she also has a degree from University of Florida. She was a food and resource economics major and worked for a winery for several years before deciding to come back and kind of help us get the creamery going. While she was working for the winery, she did marketing and a lot of consumer outreach stuff for them. So she put those skills to good use in helping us get everything going. Her and her husband are no longer actively involved, although they are owners. Her husband was in the Marines and was a helicopter pilot and decided making ice cream every day wasn't near as cool as flying helicopters, which I get. So they have since moved away for his profession, but they still kind of help us with big decisions and are still owners of the creamery. And this is just talking about our farm. So you guys saw the cows being milked there. We use milk from our farm to make the ice cream, and it goes in all of our fluid milk or our bottled milk that you guys might get at the creamery. What else? It's really hard to ad-lib this. We did start initially just with ice cream, and we started and sold our first pint in 2013. And since then have added on a bottled milk line because we had demand of people asking, hey, your ice cream's great, but can I get fluid milk, like in a bottle? Where can I get that from? And as co-op members, so we are member owners of a milk marketing co-op as a farm. And so our milk is joined with other local farms and sold kind of on a large scale. That's really nice for a farmer because that allows us to kind of stay out of all the logistics of transportation and marketing and sales. But it's kind of negative for you guys, the consumer, because it removes that connection that we have with you guys. So we use just a portion of our milk then that flows through the creamery for both the ice cream and the milk. And that allows us a forward-facing with you guys, our local consumers, so we can, hey, this is actually from our cows. I'm going to actually skip. This goes through a little bit of kind of the ice cream making process. I've got some pictures that will kind of display that, so I think we will stop it this here. Now I probably need y'all's help getting out of this stuff and flipping it back.
Just pull open the PowerPoint now.
Okay, over
There it
here.
goes.
Oh, perfect, thanks. Okay, so. Okay, so farm basics. I'll kind of just go through a little bit about the farm and then we'll switch over to the creamery. We're just shy of 500 acres and we employ a hybrid rotational grazing system. So our cows have constant access to grass, but we do supplement them in a feed barn, which you'll see a little bit closer in a minute. We have roughly 75 acres under the center pivot, which our milking cows have access to. Then we have additional acreage outside of that for our young stock and our dry cows. Total numbers are 500, with 300 of those being milk cows and 200 being young stock. And you guys talking about different breeds of cows, so Holsteins are probably what you're most familiar with, even though you don't really know it. It's the Chick-fil-A cow, the big black and white cows. They're the most popular dairy breed in the world, really. We milk primarily Jerseys, which are smaller little brown cows. They kind of look like deer, especially as calves. We milk those and then Jersey Holstein crosses, and we prefer that breed because they handle the heat better than the Holstein. They graze and are a little bit hardier, and they produce higher levels of fat and protein, which is great for things like ice cream. And then I'll just kind of run through some pictures so you guys can feel like you've been at the farm. This is just a shot across our grazing field. So we do have a multitude of different grasses that we graze, and obviously it changes depending on the season. So we have both summer annuals that we plant and perennial summer pasture, and then we have our cool season grasses that we're actually getting in the ground right now. And so this is just kind of looking back at the barns. We can change pasture sizes on a daily basis if needed, depending on grass production and depending on how many cows are in milk at the time. Cooling cows is a big deal in Florida. Cows are not necessarily lovers of hot weather, kind of like some of us, I'm sure. And so keeping them cool during the summer is of paramount importance. So we have fans and misters in our barns, which you'll see in a minute, but then when they're out on pasture grazing, we have a mister system set up underneath our center pivot. We'll just kind of run through a few more pictures of cows on grass. This is our feed barn. So I mentioned we do supplement the cows. So we feed what's called a TMR, or total mixed ration. That's balanced by a dairy nutritionist, which there is such a thing. There is really a degree in dairy nutrition, and you can formulate rations for dairy cows, and there's also the same thing for beef cattle. So my husband actually has his master's and his PhD in beef cattle physiology, so encompassing the feeding and breeding of beef cattle, although now I laugh because he manages dairy cattle every day. So they're not that different, so he still utilizes a lot of his degree on the farm. This is our main milking barn. So it's a double 12 parallel rapid exit, bunch of words to kind of explain how we milk. And I've got if it works, I got a quick video that's actually sped up that kind of just shows you the milking process. There's a few different kind of spaces in this barn. There's break room, storage room, a milk room, and then a working facility. And then the feed cooling barn was where you saw the feed along the exterior lanes. And then we also, because we have cattle, there's a lot of waste, just like if you had a human city. So we have a large number of cattle and have to manage their waste accordingly. So we have essentially a two-stage wastewater management system. We have a partition concrete line solid separator that will separate out liquids or the effluent from the solids. And then the effluent lagoon we use to fertilize our grass pastures, and the solids we can then spray on other pasture ground on the farm. And this is just the barn side by side. So on the right is our milking parlor, and then on the left is the feeding, or what we call a cooling barn. And this is just an internal picture of the milking parlor. So it's a double 12, meaning we have 12 cows on each side. It's a parallel, meaning they stand parallel to one another, and we milk through their back legs. There's different types of parlor designs. There's even robotic milking parlors today. So where you can go all the way from the older style of flat barns, where people might have milked by hand at one time, but use now individual milking machines and move them around, kind of hard on your back. Or sunken parlors like this, where you're at the cow kind of level, and then all the way up to robotic milking machines. Let me go back, because the video was embedded in this. Let's see if I have to do the video on the right screen, I believe.
It's actually working right now.
Sweet, except it's huge. You guys can get the idea. There we go. So it's in hyperspeed, but there's a whole process that goes to milking cows. It's not as simple as just stick them in the parlor and hook a milking machine up. We do a whole prep routine, and we do that for a multitude of reasons. One, we want to ensure the health of the cow and limit bacterial contamination of her udder, or mastitis. Two, we want to make sure we are collecting the highest quality milk possible. So basically, the only thing we can do is screw this up. So we want to do the best job possible ensuring that milk is collected in the cleanest, safest manner possible. So there's a whole prep system before we actually hook up the milking unit. Then we hook up the milking units, which are those hanging there. And those are operated by a vacuum and a pulsation system. None of you are moms yet, maybe, or maybe there are, but if there's any moms in the audience, you will be very familiar if you breastfed, very similar to a human breast pump, just big scale. And then after that, there's automatic takeoff. So the system can detect when the milk flow slows, and then cut off the vacuum and remove the milking unit from the cow. And then we also follow up with post-milking, post-dips to ensure that the udder of the cow does not become contaminated after milking. All right, so let me get back over here. Awesome. All right, and just a few more pictures. I know I'm a person that enjoys pictures and not so much text on PowerPoint, so there's lots of pictures. These are just some of our cows on our winter grasses grazing. And then again, I think this was some late spring grasses. And this is some summer, actually this is late spring grasses, just before summer was starting to get warm. So we do a mixture of triticale oats, ryegrass, and clovers for our winter pastures. So you see a little remnants of that in this picture. We do raise all of our young stock on farm. So in order to have milk-producing cows, you have to have calves. And some farms choose to raise their own calves on farm, and others send them off and have them raised by other farmers. But we raise everything on our own farm. So these are some of our, I'd call these the teenage cattle on our farm. And this is kind of a mixture of teenage animals and then also dry cows. So dairy cows, and people often ask, will they get milked every day, right? Well, yes, but not forever. They have a lactational curve. So after a cow has her first calf, which is generally about 2 years of age, she's going to peak out in milk production at about 90 days. Then after that, her milk production's slowly going to wane, and we aim for her to be rebred and then dry off, meaning we stop milking her at about 10 months in milk. And so after that, she just goes to a pasture, and this is actually our dry cow pasture. It's kind of one shot of it. She goes out to this dry cow pasture and does whatever her little heart desires for 2 months. So she's got a 2-month vacation. And then we aim for that cycle to repeat then after the end of that 2-month window. Cows have a gestational cycle very similar to humans of 9 months. So ideally, this would be kind of an every year cycle. It doesn't always happen like that, but that's kind of what we aim for. These are some of our calves, some of our newest babes on the farm. 2 years ago, we actually switched our management style of our calves. We had been raising them in group pens of anywhere from 15 to 25 head, and they were allowed to kind of run around and do whatever they wanted, but we would bring them milk. I had looked into a lot of research, and as a vet had been on lots of farms and decided for our system and the way we manage our cattle that we could do leave calves on our cows in our milk herd. And so we just started 2 years ago. I was a little terrified, but it worked really, really well, and we've continued with that method. So our calves run in the milk herd with the cows. And these are kind of harder to see, but got lots of babes running around this time of year, and there's just a cow and her calf. So when my husband and I, after graduation, after working off farm for a while, when we returned to the farm, we had to kind of sit down with my parents and really talk about our vision for the future, what that would look like and how we would accomplish that. While our farm is larger, it's really small in the grand scheme of things. And so our ability to sustain long-term gets more and more difficult as the years go by. More and more small family farms are going out of business because it's just hard to compete. Really big facilities have economies of scale that allow them to compete at a larger level. And so we're really at a disadvantage with our size. So we wanted to be able to enhance our long-term sustainability and the ability for us to support additional family units. We are always looking at ways to optimize our land use while also enhancing our environment. And then we wanted to establish that connection with you guys, the local consumers. So for us, after my husband and I came back, we chose to diversify our farming operation instead of expanding just our cow numbers. So that's when the Creamery was born. And just a little bit about the Creamery, we are a handcrafted artisanal ice cream, so everything is very small batch. Some of our equipment you'll see in a minute is actually manufactured by a company called Micro Dairy Systems out of Maryland. So they are doing everything on a very kind of micro scale. They decided that, and I believe the son has an engineering degree. The dad, I think, maybe had kind of been in dairy production a little bit, and they realized this was really kind of a market that was untapped. There was really a desire for small scale farms to produce on a small scale and be able to sell a value-added product. So they started making that equipment. All right, so this is a science group. So our product is non-homogenized, and this is always so confusing to consumers. And maybe you guys can help me come up with an easy way to explain it. So within the state of Florida, and every state is different in this country, but within the state of Florida, milk is required to be pasteurized. And you guys probably know pasteurization, old Louis Pasteur. So within milk, that's heating it to a certain temperature to kill 99.9% of the bacteria that could be present. It's done for food safety reasons. Started many, many years ago because milk back then was not kept at temperatures it should have been, and so it made lots of people very sick. And it's still done today for food safety reasons. So our milk in our ice cream is required by law to be pasteurized. However, we do not use homogenization. So homogenization is when you take, and kind of just to simplify it, you take milk and you press it through a bunch of tiny kind of sieves or filters. And that breaks down the fat globules that are in milk. And it allows them to not stick together anymore. So if you get milk right out of a cow, you let it sit, the cream is going to rise to the top. The fat's going to bind together, and you're going to have a cream layer and a skim layer. That's how it comes out. Over time and through kind of large-scale production, people decided to start homogenizing because it made it easier. You could separate cream and skim. You could sell the cream, or you could mix it back in and make 2%, 1%, whole milk, which is 3.25% or 3.5%. So it allowed for kind of ease on the production side. For our family, one, we didn't want to buy a homogenizer because they're really kind of annoying to upkeep, and they're a big piece of equipment, and they're expensive. But two, we also wanted the milk to be as close to possible as it was when it came out of the cow. And we just like drinking cream-lined milk. And so we call it a cream-lined milk because the cream settles off to the top. And you can either pour that cream off, or you can shake it, and it becomes kind of a whole milk, and then pour it up and drink it like that. So we local source as many of our ingredients, our add-ins for our ice cream as possible from fellow and local producers. And we currently have sales in over 35 locations. Mainly that's across the Panhandle. We sell over to Pensacola, to Tallahassee. We have a few sales locations in the kind of Live Oak or Lake City area. And then we have a scoop shop in Cocoa Beach. Not our own, but someone using our ice cream. I need an updated picture because Meghan is not in this. This is some of our crew. We're missing a few, but this is our Creamery crew. We're very fortunate and have had a lot of publicity since we've been in business. We were featured in Southern Living multiple times, and we were also chosen as the winner of Garden and Guns Made in the South Awards our first year in business. So that really kind of catapulted us to the national spotlight, for better or for worse. And for those of you who have never visited us, we're right downtown in the brick building just off of 90 on Jefferson Street. These are just some pictures. This was actually from our grand opening. So we've been open in this location. It's coming up on 3 years. We did a soft opening in December of 2017 and then a major opening in February of 2018, right before Hurricane Michael. So this is the interior. We wanted it to feel like people had been to the farm without really being there. So if you guys have been there, you know there's lots of pictures all over the walls of our cows from our farm. And we also needed a way to show the public and be able to do tours of our processing facility. In our old facility, which used to be down on Franklin Street in the old peanut warehouse, we didn't have an easy way of conducting tours in that facility. And so people always wanted to come, but we'd have to shut down production in order to get them in. So in the new facility, we are able to do tours in there, and people can see through the windows and kind of talk through their production. Real quickly, I'll just kind of run through the production itself. So I really was kind of naive to how I did not realize how much science goes into ice cream production. It really is chemistry. My sister attended Penn State's ice cream short course, which is a week-long short course, and she came home with a 3-ring binder this thick on the science of making ice cream. Because we didn't know what we were doing. We just knew we wanted to make ice cream, and we had to figure out how. So there's a lot of chemistry involved, but I'll talk a little bit just about our equipment. So on the left screen, that's our raw room. So we receive raw milk into that room. Those are 2 30-gallon vat or batch pasteurizers. So they heat up the milk and then hold it there for the minimum amount of time, which is 30 minutes. And then on the wall, up kind of to the left, those are kind of the memory and the mind of the machine, and then chart recorders, because everything is regulated. So we have to have records of absolutely everything that we do. And so those chart recorders record time and temperature on all of our batches. The picture on the right are 4, they're actually floating aging tanks. So they're just floating in water, and they allow the product to be cooled after pasteurization. Our milk, once it's cooled to 45 degrees, we start bottling. Our ice cream will stay in those aging vats overnight to help the flavors meld together. Back to our pasteurizers. For doing our fluid milk, our bottled milk, it's as simple as just putting the milk into the pasteurizer and heating it, and then cooling it down. For ice cream, we're actually mixing all of our flavors and all of our ingredients in the pasteurizer here, allowing those flavors to kind of cook and meld together, and then pumping it over to the aging tanks. So after it's been in the aging tank overnight, then it goes to this dude. This is an Emery Thompson batch freezer or ice cream maker. It's kind of like your home ice cream maker turned on its side. It functions pretty much exactly the same. It's got dashers, which I should have gotten a picture of the actual dashers on the inside, that scrape the frozen product off the wall. And it's a horizontal instead of like a vertical ice cream maker. So to scrape the frozen product off the wall, most of the ice cream needs to be in there for 13, 15 minutes, depending on what we're freezing. So if it's something like salty dark chocolate or salty caramel, obviously the freezing point's depressed, so we have to run it a little longer. And so this is just a picture of my dad pouring our mix in after it's been in the aging tank. And then that's how it comes out. Comes out a soft serve consistency. You could eat it then. But since we have a scoop shop and we sell to other locations, we need it hard frozen. So after it comes out, where it's going to go through this depositor, We used to hand pint or hand pack every pint, and that was great, except it got to be really, really time consuming. So now we only hand pack ingredients or flavors that have swirls, like a vanilla and satsuma jam we do by hand. But everything else goes through this depositor, and it actually has a little pneumatic foot pedal, and then it will deposit exactly 1 pint's worth in each pint. Just speeds up the process, makes us a little more efficient. So it looks like this before getting a cap and a tamper-evident seal, and then it's flipped upside down, and all the pints are stored on those trays, and then put into our blast freezers. So this gets our ice cream really cold really fast after it's already partially frozen, and it's going to freeze the rest of those crystals, or essentially the water within the ice cream, but you want the crystal size to be really, really small, because that's going to help with kind of the mouth feel. You don't want a real kind of big crystallization on your ice cream. You want a nice smooth mouth feel, so that's going to allow for that. So we leave those in the blast freezer for roughly 24 hours, and then after that they get moved out into our walk-in freezer. And then they live there until we use them for our own scoop shop or send them out to some of our wholesale customers across the Panhandle. Yep, so it's I think they get down to negative 25 degrees, so much colder than a regular freezer, so it allows for really small crystal formation. So yeah, that's kind of a key in making sure that smoothness of the ice cream is created, aside from just your recipe itself, but that helps a lot. And then kind of looking at the two businesses together. We're always trying to look towards the future and figure out our growth. So for the farm side, we want to kind of continue with diversification. We want to enhance utilization of our fresh local milk and try to put as much of that milk through the creamery and keep it here locally as possible. On the creamery side, we want to continue market expansion while staying really true to who we are and what our vision is. And then also look at some product diversification. So we have played a little bit with some flavored milk. Right now I'm doing everything through our current creamery, which is really set up for ice cream and not ideal for fluid bottled milk production. So I'm really kind of limited, but I have done some chocolate. We're actually looking at partnering with another small business in Pensacola and doing a cold brew latte, ready-to-drink product. So looking at continuing that, and we'll be expanding into a facility right across Market Street, and that will allow us to streamline our bottling production and kind of continue looking at adding additional products. One thing, and I'll run through this really quick because I want to leave time for questions. One thing that we're really passionate about, obviously, is sharing our story. And I said at the creamery we wanted people to feel like they've been on farm because, as you guys know, each generation we get further and further away from farming. So I feel it's very, very important for you as customers and consumers to understand what we do, and more importantly, why we do what we do. So we always have farm tours. We offer private tours, but then once a year we open up the farm to the public for free farm tour. It usually happens in early October, and it's in conjunction with a larger farm tour that happens across the Panhandle. This year there was about 50 farms from Jefferson County to Washington County that participated. And it's a self-guided tour. They send out or have booklets available so you can kind of do your own route and go to visit whatever farms you'd like. So we participate in that each year. Just to kind of get out there and allow people to come see for themselves and to ask whatever questions that they want to about dairy production. All right, so now for you guys. These are just a few little things that I kind of want to hit on. As a student and as a college student, I want you to know and understand how much opportunity you have in school to just see and do different things that becomes a little harder after graduation. So while you're a student, take advantage of all of those things. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. It'll be down at the bottom. But do things, take advantage of internships, take advantage of mentors, whoever that may be, anybody that within your kind of schooling, teachers, other students, business owners, kind of get to know them and really take advantage of that relationship. Gain as much knowledge as you can, but that doesn't mean it's just in the classroom. get involved. You guys are obviously involved in the Science Association, so being involved in different clubs, volunteering, going on different trips are really, really, really important. And then load up on as many courses while you're here as possible. So I never took Dr. Bodart's physics class here because I had a really big course load and I was like, oh, I'll just do it at UF. I wish I had done it here. Trust me, it's so much better at UF. I think there was 450 of us in the class. It was horrible. The class was graded on a curve. It was really, really, really challenging. So get those, I think I saved that in biochemistry. It was rough. Get all those, if you're a science major, you got lots of those really hard core science classes and those advanced science classes, get them out of the way here. All of them, as many as you can. And then I'm gonna jump back up the top. There are so many opportunities abound throughout the agriculture sector. People often don't necessarily associate agriculture and science, but it's all in the same. Everything we do on a daily basis, whether it's at the farm or at the creamery, is really kind of science-centric. And there's lots of different opportunities, and those careers come in all shapes and sizes. This one's having goals are important, and they help steer your path, but don't become so fixated on a goal that you miss out on other opportunities. So I went to vet school. I had the luxury of being accepted to vet school, but within my class I think there was 80 of us. And I think the day that we had interviews, there were 850 people that were interviewing. Obviously, they're not all going to get in. So, and a lot of those people, that was the only thing that they set their focus on. And you know how disappointing that is when you don't get in. Always have other options. Always kind of think of other things that might interest you. Some of those students tried multiple times, and some of them ended up getting in, but some did not. So don't be so focused that you set all the stakes on one prize. Kind of keep your options open. And it may be something that you never dreamed you'd be doing. So here's my dad cooking some bacon while he's got a bottle of bourbon in his hand to go make ice cream later. So, being part of an ice cream company, and what me and my husband and my family are doing now was nothing that I ever really envisioned as a student. But it's been a really, really cool ride. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I still practice veterinary medicine, not near as much, but I do all of our vet work on the farm, and then I do some on the side. So it's been really exciting to kind of dabble in different things and kind of put different skills to test, essentially. And don't fool yourself into thinking that everybody has everything figured out. So I remember being a very naive 20-something, be like, oh my gosh, these adults, like they've got their life figured out. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We don't. We're just all like flying by the seat of our pants, juggling as many balls as we can, trying to keep them all in the air, and really trying to keep the ones that are made of glass from not falling. That's it. Life is crazy. It's fun. None of us have it figured out. Just have fun with it and be malleable, I guess would be kind of my biggest take, and enjoy the ride wherever that might take you, even if it's not kind of that plan that you had, or that path that you had planned. So what? It might be something really fun and exciting that you didn't expect. So thank you guys. I'm going to leave up here. Here's some of our crazy flavors. If you guys have never been to the shop, we try to, as I mentioned, source as many local ingredients and kind of local centric, and then we have seasonal flavors that play off of those, whatever's in season at the time. And I think I'll come back to it. I'll put this up too. If any of you have any questions, if you ever want to volunteer, we do take interns on the farm. I actually already have 2 students booked from the University of Florida this summer, but we could squeeze in some of you guys if y'all were interested. So just email, call, text, whatever you'd like. Just get in touch with me and we can see what we could make work. So thank you guys, and I can go back to that if some of y'all, I'll sit here for a second and I'll answer some questions and I'll go back to the contact info in case you guys didn't get it. But thank y'all. So any questions?
I got a question.
Yeah, I'll come back to you.
How much of your milk goes to the young ones that you guys get on
Yep, so right now, so before we started leaving them with their moms, because right now they can drink whatever they want. Before we started doing that, we were giving 2 gallons per calf per day. So,
What percentage is that?
let me do some math real quick. That's, depends on the cow's production, but you're looking at anywhere from 1/4 of her production to a little less. So roughly somewhere in there.
And then how much goes into the creamery?
So based on our current production right now, we're utilizing about 7% of our total production that goes into the creamery.
The rest goes out.
The rest is sold through our co-op. So yep, so, and that involves us, since we are member owners, a truck comes, it depends on what our production is, can be every day or as the longest that we can hold it as every 3 days. Truck will pull up to the farm and take whatever we have left in the tank. So before that we can, nope, it's a raw product coming out.
This is what goes into the ice cream.
Yep, the only thing that we have to worry with is our own production, so our own pasteurizing of our fluid milk into bottles and then the ice cream. And then the co-op then sells it to other companies. So a lot of our milk, as in our co-op name is Southeast Milk Incorporated, a lot of it goes to, for instance, Publix. So if you were to go to Publix and get the jug brand name Publix, that's Southeast milk. That could be some of our milk going into that. It's all commingled, and then Publix takes care of the processing. So they do their own pasteurization, testing, homogenization, and then the blending back of, and some of that goes into their ice cream, some goes in their sour cream.
It's all mixed.
It's all mixed, so we can't say, this is where our milk goes, which I think is kind of while it's great from a farm perspective and not having to worry about that, it sure is a disconnect from us to you guys. Let me jump over here because she had it, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay, so whenever y'all put the ice cream containers in the freezer, like upside down,
Yep.
is it just like y'all that do that, or like all the ice cream people?
Most do, and you know why? So when we use a little depositor, there's always going to be just a little bit of air, a little air gap, and so when you flip it over, you just don't see that air gap right at the top. So it'll be at the bottom. There's always, because if you get it too full, you're going to have some expansion. So you always want to leave a little gap anyway, but sometimes it just doesn't fill and expand fully. So it just makes the product look more uniform when you open it. Good question. Do you have another one? Okay, and then back here.
If the milk is contaminated coming out of the cow, like she has mastitis, do you have sensors in the pumps, or do you just see it?
Yeah, so during the milking process, and I didn't go through the whole process, but there's a whole prep. So when the cows come in, we're going to first do a pre-dip. So it's just a little squeezy container. It's got a little well at the top, and we dip each teat end. And right now we're using a bleach-based teat dip. So we'll leave that on for a minimum of 30 seconds, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a pre-strip or a forestrip, and it's just like hand milking. So you're looking for abnormalities in the milk. And most of the time with mastitis, you're going to see a gross abnormality. So it's either going to have little flakes or chunks or off color. And so if we notice that, and so our milkers and then ourselves when we're doing it, every cow gets pre-stripped. If we notice that there's something not quite right, the other thing can happen is she can get a swollen quarter. So an udder has 4 compartments, and we call them quarters. And that'll get swollen and kind of hard, or she just might look physically ill. If any of those things happen, that cow gets marked with a big orange paint stick on her leg, and then we mark on our dry erase board in the parlor. We'll put her number down and then put what quarter is affected, and she gets put to the side. And then she comes in last with what we call our hospital herd. And so that group is comprised mainly of, during this time of the year, of new moms that have just had calves. So their milk is only going to them. It's that first milk or that colostrum. It's not saleable. So anything that the calf doesn't drink, we either collect for other calves or dump down the drain. So the same thing happens with a cow that's maybe got mastitis. So she's going to go and get milk down the drain last. If we see that it's a mastitis that needs to be treated, and we can do our own on-farm culturing with Petri dishes and culturing. If it's something that we know can be treated with an antibiotic that we have available to us, we will treat her. And then people always ask, well, aren't you organic? Well, as a veterinarian and as a mother, our farm is not organic, because by organic standards, if I treat her with an antibiotic that I know can heal her, I have to sell her or have her removed from my farm. And I don't agree with that personally. Any of the drugs that can be used for cattle, both beef and dairy, have to go through stringent FDA testing. And there are only certain drugs that we're allowed to use for both beef and dairy production. And when they do testing on those, and I'm getting really long-winded, but I want to make sure, it's a complex question and there's a complex answer with it. When that testing takes place, they look for how long that drug has residues both within her milk and within her meat. And we're not allowed to take milk from her or to harvest her for beef within that, what's called a withdrawal time. So that whole time, say the cow that I pulled that has mastitis, I treat her with an approved antibiotic. She has to go to the hospital. We put leg bands on her. They're like bracelets, so we can see her if she was to get out of that group. And we know, don't milk her. She has to stay within that herd and be milked down the drain for however many days that drug manufacturer tells us. And all of them have labels, and they say both milk and meat withdrawal. After that point, if we treated her by label directions, then she can re-enter our normal milking herd and rejoin the cows to be used as saleable milk. So yeah, really good question, and I had a really long answer for it, but I knew there might be some follow-up questions about antibiotic usage. So that's something that's really confusing from a consumer perspective, because a lot of times people say, well, only organic milk doesn't have antibiotics. Well, no milk or meat has antibiotics, and if it does, we are held liable if something happened and something got contaminated. All right, any other questions? Yeah? How do you come up with ideas for your ice cream flavor? Oh, good question. So as a family, we love to eat a lot, and we love to travel and try different things. So we're always looking, when we do happen to travel, we just kind of taste different flavor combinations and kind of think of different ways to put those flavor combinations together. So it involves a lot of eating, a lot of traveling when we can, and then also just kind of looking like we'll talk about something that just sounds good, or sometimes we'll like bounce it off employees, like, what do you guys think about this, or what would be good if using this ingredient? Because we try to kind of focus, like I talked about, on local ingredients, so like kumquats we get from a local person, and then trying to build a flavor around that is kind of usually where that starts. Do you have something else?
I was just going to say, how many tries does it take to do that?
Oh, it depends. Some of them never make it out of the experiment stage. We have a small tabletop ice cream maker that usually like a chef would use. It's only, I think there's like 1.5 quarts or something. So you can do a really,
I was like, that would take a lot.
yes. It's a big waste, right? Yeah, no, so we use a really small scale first and kind of test and test again if necessary. Sometimes just one try, and sometimes they just never leave the testing phase. Sometimes it takes multiple adjustments because it might be close, but then we have to tweak kind of the level of sugar or the level of whatever ingredient it is that we have. So yeah, a lot of sampling. That's what we like to do with employees too, is let them taste and sample. Meghan and I were tasting a mint chocolate chip the other day, and both of us was like, I don't know, they taste the same. It's hard. I love food, but my palate is not very precise. I actually have my 9-year-old daughter. She is amazing, and I'll say, ask Emma, because she's gonna pick the difference and pick which one is best. So, any other questions?
When do you have zucchini with pecans?
Yeah, zucchini. So we just finished that this summer. So it's zucchini is a summer vegetable. So whenever zucchini's in season, we'll do zucchini with pecans. It's really pretty good. So I was at and I'm not always at the creamery. I'm usually at the farm, but I was at the creamery and up behind the counter one day, and I was doing something else, but I heard somebody taste testing someone on zucchini, and they're like, "Huh, it tastes like zucchini." It's kind of the point. We want it to actually taste like what it is. I saw a hand over here.
So for the citrus-based flavors, do you add the citrus after it's frozen? Because I was wondering.
It depends. Yeah, so that's a good question, because we also do some ginger-based flavors, and if you know anything about ginger can also turn milk to like a custard at high temperatures. So some of the ingredients are added post-pasteurization, some are added pre. If it's added post-pasteurization, we still have to get it to a temperature either in the oven or on the stovetop to kill bacteria, so it's kind of like fully cooked before we add it in. So, but the citrus, it depends. We've done a satsuma, just a satsuma flavor, and that's pre-pasteurization. So you just have to watch your levels of juice that you add in so you don't have that problem. Most of the time with the citrus, we're doing a swirl, so we're actually making a jam, and the jam is then being swirled into, say, like the vanilla. Yeah, so you're not having to fight that. But yeah, the satsuma one can be persnickety, and then the ginger flavor can be persnickety too. We just have to really watch concentrations on them so that we don't end up with a vat of cheese or curdles. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys so much. Here, in case any of you didn't get that, I'll switch it to that one. And feel free to jot down or take a picture of my contact info, and you'll have a wonderful rest of your day.